Hey, gotta make a quick video. You know, in the Bible where it talks about it'll be in the days like in the days of Noah when Christ come, they'll be eating and drinking. One will be taken, one will be left. You know, two in the field, one taken, one left. Two in the bed, one taken, one left. There's a dilemma going on about the one that's being taken. That the one that's being taken is the sinner, and that it is the Christian that is being left. But that's not true. Remember, the rapture of the church happens at the sounding of the seventh trumpet. Now, each of the trumpets have a plague that's associated with that trumpet, right? And each of the vials in Revelation chapter 16 are bowls, if you want to say vials or bowls. Each one of the vials or bowls have a plague associated with that bowl or vial, right? So the trumpets of Revelation chapters 8 through 11, and the vials are all contained in Revelation chapter 16. So here's the deal. We know that the resurrection rapture happens at the sounding of the last trumpet. But God has promised that we as Christians will not be a part of God's wrath. So if the trumpets and the bowls are the wrath of the Lamb, the trumpets are the wrath of the Lamb, the bowls or vials are the wrath of God, as soon as that trumpet sounds, we have to be taken out of the earth. Why? Because God has promised us that we will not experience the Lamb's wrath or God's wrath. That's why as soon as the trumpet begins to sound, the rapture happens in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Why? Because just because the trumpet sounded, the plague of that trumpet hasn't happened on the earth yet. And Jesus promised us that believe in him, except for the 144,002 witnesses, all the rest of us have to be out of the earth when the plagues are hitting the earth. That's why the trumpet sounds in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, and we're out of the earth. And then as soon as we're caught up, the actual plague of the seventh trumpet must take place in the earth. And then after the plague of the seventh trumpet takes place, is completed, you still have the seventh bowl or the last bowl to be poured out on the earth. And we cannot be here for the plague part of the seventh trumpet, nor the pouring out of the seventh bowl. And that's why he says one will be taken and one will be left. We're going to be caught up to meet the Lord in the air as soon as the seventh trumpet begins to sound, because we cannot be a part of that plague whatsoever. And the twinkling of an eye really is faster than the blinking of an eye. It really is. It's faster than that. And like I said, the reason one is taken and one is left, the one that's left must still go through that last trumpet plague and that last bowl plague. And the one that is taken is the church. And that's why we're caught up so fast, because we cannot be a part of that last trumpet plague, nor can we be a part of that last bowl that's pouring out. So you got a teaching that's going around right now. The one that's taken is the sinners. That the sinners are taken and thrown into the fire and burned. And the ones that are left behind is the church. No, that's not true. See, there is a teaching that at the end, when the harvest is taken in by the Lord, the wheat will be taken into the Lord's barn, and the tares will be cast into the fire and burned. Many have been taught that that happens at the beginning of the millennial reign of Christ on earth. All sinners will be thrown into the lake of fire, and all the Christians will go through the millennial reign of Christ on earth. No sinners will be on the earth during the millennial reign of Christ. That's not true. Because Daniel chapter 7, verse 11 or 12 talks about the kings of the earth who are ruling with the Antichrist, that their dominion or power or authority is taken away, yet their lives are prolonged for a season. And those kings will go into the millennial reign of Christ alive. So this thing about no sinners going into the millennial reign of Christ, and Christ destroying all the sinners and giving them to the flame, separating the wheat and the tares when Jesus comes to earth to begin his millennial reign on earth, that is not true. And Isaiah 65 verses 17 to the end of that chapter tells you a man reaching the age of 100 as a sinner will be accursed. That is during the millennial reign of Christ on earth. So if there are no sinners here, why is the Bible talking about sinners reaching the age of 100 during the millennial reign of Christ, where a wolf will lay down with the lamb and the child will play on the hole of the poisonous asp and so forth? That is the time of the millennial reign. And even in Zechariah chapter 14, where you got to go up to Jerusalem every year to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, whatever nation that doesn't go up to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, there will be no rain. So how could a nation or people be in rebellion, which is sin, if there are no sinners in the earth during the millennial reign of Christ on the earth? Where is that rebellion coming from? So we got this thing twisted. It is completely twisted. The reason one is left and one is taken, the one that's taken is the Christian, because we got to be taken up out of the earth before the plague of the seventh trumpet even begins. We got to be gone. As soon as that trumpet sounds, before that plague begins, we're out of the earth. That's why it's so fast. And we cannot be here on the earth for the pouring out of the last vial of the last bowl of God the Father's wrath. That's who is the one that is taken. The one that is left is the sinner. And we're getting it twisted about there'll be no sinners on the earth during the millennial reign of Christ. That is not true. That is not true. We will have sinners. Who do you think, if we don't have any sinners, last point, here on the earth during the millennial reign of Christ on the earth, who is the sinners in Revelation chapter 20, verses 7 through 15, that Satan, once he's released out of the bottomless pit, after the 1,000-year reign of Christ is over, he goes out and deceives the nations of the earth again, the numbers of whom is the sand of the sea. And they surround the holy city. And then fire comes down from God and destroys all of those people who have surrounded the holy city. Now, if there was no sinners in the earth, who is Satan deceiving at the end of the 1,000 years? If there's no sinners in the earth during the reign of Christ, who is Satan deceiving? You see, we got this thing wrong about no sinners going into the millennial reign of Christ. And then you'll see in Revelation chapter 20, just like I told you, after the 1,000 years are over, you will see the final judgment. The heaven will pass away, the earth will pass away, be burning with a fervent heat, over yonder being refurbished, right? And at that time, everyone that was in hell and everyone that was in death and all those who came to Christ during the millennial reign will be suspended in the atmosphere. All of us will be suspended in the atmosphere in space. Jesus' throne will be there suspended in space. The people will be standing before the throne, and Jesus will judge them. And then the wheat and the tares will finally be separated, and the wheat gathered into the Lord's barn, and the tares cast into the fire and burned. That doesn't happen at the beginning of the 7 years. That happens after the, not 7 years. That doesn't happen at the beginning of the 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth. It happens after the 1,000-year reign of Christ is over. So I hope this helps. God bless you, and please share.